Right now, we shall get to some practical aspects, and we are going to talk about three types or three kinds of coordination activities that is possible during demo project's implementation. We shall talk about pre-tender meetings. We shall talk about kick-off meeting. I mean, the meeting after the contract has been signed with the contractor for construction works, and weekly meetings at the site. I would probably ask you, or probably we shall do it all together, to think or to answer 6 questions for each meeting. In your opinion, what is the key goal of pre-tender meetings? When shall it be organized? Who shall organize it? Who should be present at this meeting? What questions should be addressed? And after this meeting, what kind of reports should be submitted? Will anybody like to start? Piotr, you're welcome. Pre-tender meetings, at least with us, were organized at the stage when the tender has been announced, and there are two variants. In case there is a specific site, and if it is considered to be necessary, the pre-tender meeting is organized directly at the site. So this is the situation when we have the complex site, and we have to address lots of questions. The meeting is organized by the contracting authority, by the client. That is the organization that is actually supervising or is responsible for the tender. How it should be organized. In tender documents, as a rule, we just write the date and the place where the pre-tender meeting takes place. According to the legislation and according to tender regulations, nobody can oblige anybody to be present at such pre-tender meeting, and in any case, any uh, uh, offerer or any subject that makes an offer should be present there. Definitely, the very organizer should attend this pretender meeting, and also any additional invited subjects or people. This can be narrow field experts or representative of any authorities. And still, a lot depends on the tender. What is the subject of the object of the tender? What is on the agenda? Usually, this is brief description of all the construction works to be performed during the tender, all the subtle aspects related to tender conditions or participation conditions and minimum tender criteria. Uh, After the meeting is over, there is a Q&A session, and definitely we should think about the possibility to record the meeting uh, for us to be able to later produce a protocol, a minutes of this meeting. And also in this protocol or in these minutes, you should include all the questions and answers voiced during such a meeting. So briefly, this is everything from me. Well, it was a brief description, but I actually have nothing to add. And Peter has mentioned it. I would like to stress the point of the results of pre-tender meeting. The basic principle of organizing pre-tender meeting is openness and transparency for all the potential participants. So if somebody has not managed to participate in the meeting, this person or this entity should have access to all the questions addressed during the meeting. Therefore, the protocol or the minutes should be published according to the procedure. presupposed in your tender portfolio for any company that was not participating in the meeting could be able to read the protocol, the minutes. Also, the meeting is organized after the tender is announced, but before certain additions or explanations are submitted on the part of the client. So for the questions that are addressed during the meeting to be responded, for example, in a written form by the client, to be explained, and to publish them according to the procedures written in tender documentation. For example, if we talk about Moldova, it may be a typical type of activity. Then for Belarus and Ukraine, organizing pre-tender meetings is to some extent specific, and I would say it is not always prescribed by the procurement legislation or procurement regulations. For example, Ukraine followed anti-corruption way or digitalization way, and all the relationships between the client and potential contractors is organized in an electronic way through special procurement platform. And therefore, this idea of pre-tender meeting is not regulated by Ukrainian legislation. What was the way out for us? And we organize still pre-tender meetings. Your teams have such a meeting, you have such a right. You are not working in the municipality, you are not part of educational authority that will be responsible for the tender, but you as the team project may have rights to organize such a meeting. Also, it is necessary to have the representative of the design company to be present at such a meeting and to answer all the questions that potential contractor might have. It actually makes your life easier at the implementation stage. How will you invite participants for this meeting? The best variant is for the tender documents to be regulating organization of this meeting. The time, the place, the format of this meeting, whether registration is required or not, and as a result, all the potential participants will know how this meeting will look like from practical point of view. What benefits will you get by organizing this meeting? What is the goal of this meeting? For the potential contractor not to, or client not to buy something like a pig in the poke, but to understand the condition of the site from the very beginning when the tender is over and, for example, this contractor will be hired. Practice has shown that such meetings allow to remove not qualified contractors, because when the potential contractor sees the level of organization, the requirements of the client, the stakeholders present, the bad companies actually are not willing to participate anymore. And later, the relationships between key stakeholders is much better because they have already built a dialogue during this pre-tender meeting. If you have some questions regarding pre-tender meeting, I probably would like to add, there are also a couple of disadvantages or minuses or minor negative nuances of such a meeting. A lot of organizations do not want some other people to know about their participation. And that means that lots of organizations do not attend this meeting. Even if they do not attend, they do not come themselves and send somebody else instead of such organizations. If somebody else comes instead of organization, here there are registration issues. For example, a person introduces himself or herself just as a physical person, and there are some more aspects related to it. A lot depends on what kind of tender we are talking about. For example, if we are talking about a limited procedure tender,
То есть
when we
здесь
have a
человек
number
не
of
получится,
invited
кто может
companies,
управлять всем.
it means
Ты
you
должен
have
учитывать
to
все перечни
send
приглашенных
uh,
компаний. И тогда
invitations
ему не
to
получится
the
заявиться
restricted
как
list of
физическое лицо.
invited
Он все
companies.
равно должен
And it
показать,
means a
кто
person
он
cannot
перед
be
всеми
just a third
остальными.
party. A person will
Это
have
понятно.
to introduce himself
Когда
or
открытый
herself
тендер,
as
то да,
representing a
там
certain
просто либо
company.
публикуют
And
все
when
по
it is
отдельности,
just an open
посылается,
tender,
либо в
the
электронной
information is
форме указывают,
published,
что
or
каждый
in
должен
electronic
был,
form,
он ставит
you
галочку, что
just
да, я в
indicate
курсе, при
that
встрече
the
тогда-то.
the company indicates that, okay, I know about the
Спасибо.
meeting.
Следующий вид активности– это
Another type of
стартовая встреча.
activity
То
is
есть
the
это
kick-off
стартовая
meeting.
встреча
This
с
kick-off
подрядчиком,
meeting means a
которая
meeting with the
частично уже
contractor,
дам ответ на
and
вопрос, которая
partially I will answer my
делается
own
сразу,
questions.
сразу
The
в течение
kick-off
там,
meeting is
5
organized
дней после
actually
подписания
within the
контракта
period of
с
5 working
подрядчиком.
days after the contract with the
У
contractor
кого-то
has been
идеи,
signed.
как это должно
Will
происходить, есть
anybody like to
добровольцы?
just talk how this meeting should
Можно, но
be
после этого.
organized?
Только вопрос задам. Вы
Да-да.
сказали,
Probably I have a
после
question.
подписания контракта.
Да.
After the contract has been
Нету
signed, right?
Нету
Not
после.
before, but after the contract has been signed. Yes.
Мы тогда будем назначать.
Then I appoint a volunteer.
Так, что основная цель
What is the
стартовой
primary
встречи? Я так понимаю,
objective of
это
the kickoff
обсудить
meeting
еще раз
is
нюансы
to
проекта.
once again
Возможно, если
discuss
есть
the aspects
какие-нибудь
of the project.
проблемные или там
Probably if there are some
суперсложные задачи
problematic
этого
or
проекта, еще раз на
complicated
них
issues related
остановиться.
to the project, it means that during this
Когда
meeting
нужно
we can
провести,
discuss
вы уже
them once
сказали.
again. When it should be
Сразу
organized,
после
you have already
подписания
answered this
проекта, кто
question.
должен
Immediately the
организовать
contract has
встречу?
been signed.
Я считаю, что организовать
Who
встречу
should
должна
organize the
команда
meeting? In
проекта
my opinion,
вместе с
the meeting should be organized
муниципалитетом.
by the project team together with the municipality.
Так, ну, кто должен присутствовать?
Who should be
Естественно,
present?
команда проекта.
Definitely the project team.
Так, представители муниципалитета.
Representatives of the
Наверное,
municipality,
представители
probably
команды
representatives
поддержки.
of the support
Возможно,
team, but possibly.
у них будут какие-нибудь
Probably
пожелания.
they might have some wishes or recommendations.
Ну да, да,
Design
подрядчики.
company, contractor.
Вопрос к вам.
I have a question to
Вы
you.
сказали,
You have mentioned that
цель
the goal of the kickoff meeting is to discuss some nuances or aspects. Norbert was talking about it. You are not going to discuss any aspects. Whatever you have included into the project, into the contract, will be performed. For example, if there are any issues related to design and estimate documents,
Свои сложности уже вижу.
well, I just know the issues regarding my project. Probably Maxim will correct me, but you should not discuss it. Everything should be laid down in the contract. If you just discuss it, it will give you anything. It's probably too late to discuss these things.
часто присутствую на
For
стартовых
example,
встречах.
as a technical expert, I often attend such kickoff meetings.
Максим вам расскажет.
Maxim will tell you probably more about it. I'm not going to speak instead of him.
То есть я считаю, основное
In my
все-таки это
opinion, the
надо
key idea of such
познакомиться друг с
kickoff
другом,
meetings is
да,
to get acquainted,
обменяться контактными данными,
to
составить таблицу
provide
контактных
each
данных,
other
кто у вас
contact
из
data,
компании
to have a
контактное
special
лицо,
contact
обсудить
table.
коммуникацию,
Who
как
is
идет
your
обмен
contact person? Who
вашей
is the
информацией.
contractor contact person? To discuss
Получить
issues
проект
related to
производства работ,
information
тайминг
exchange,
графика
to
выполнения.
discuss the schedule of the project. Well, everything will
Это и
be
есть цель
laid
стартовой
down
встречи.
in the contract.
Всегда идет
Well, the
дополнение
schedule of the
к
project is always one of the appendices to the contract. No, the contract is quite general. You already have the starting date. You have a plan to certain construction works. The contractor already knows how many groups or construction teams it will have, 2 or 4 or 5. So these are details. So you get acquainted, you discuss the schedule as well as a number of other things. Our chief accountant writes certain issues in lots of details in the contract.
так детально, как вы
Probably
говорите.
not
Смотрите,
uh,
ну,
in
я
such
вам
details as
скажу,
you
я не
mention it. Well, I do not believe that certain things will be really included into the contract. Believe me, for 20 years, I've seen it only a couple of times when really there is a professional project team and you have the schedule before even the tender has been announced. If you don't have the schedule now, you are not going to have it later. So when you were writing your design terms of reference or tender terms of reference, it was the stage where you were supposed to have the schedule. I'm just trying to provoke you
Тогда
to create
поверхностная
something like it.
коммуникация,
Then agenda probably will be about
стройка коммуникации
communication,
между
establishing dialogue
подрядчиком
between the
и заказчиком
contractor and the
и
client,
детальный
and
календарь.
probably detailed schedule of construction works. Am I right?
Нельзя?
Detailed schedule of construction works.
Ну да, да, по четвертому, да,
And
технадзор,
actually, who should be present? Definitely representatives of the design company and site supervisors and support team. But I have mentioned support team. As a rule, there are two uh, people on the support team. One is trying to intimidate the contractor, and another is trying to make him uh, to make it be comfortable. That was a joke. Usually, for example, during the process of contract signing, for example, when the contractor is signing the contract with the municipality, we organize this working meeting. This was something mentioned by Andrei. It is about point 6. What should be the benefits for all the stakeholders after this meeting? The first point is the table in, that includes the contact information of all the people. For example, if we have big construction companies, probably the director won't be personally present at each of the meetings or be responsible for the construction works. There will be probably the responsible person who will attend the site every day and who will be responsible for all the issues related to construction works, at least 95% of it. You, as the project manager, definitely should provide your phones, your contact information to the contractor, discuss communication methodology. All these issues should be included into the contract, but definitely you have to voice them. Your weekly meetings, how often they should take place, how they should be organized. Definitely you should have all the contacts of the representative of the design company, of the site supervisor. You should voice your expectations, what you expect from all the stakeholders, detailed plan. For example, in our document, it is stated in a different way. Within 2 week period, the contractor should present a detailed schedule of construction works. At the stage of tender, it is impossible to do it physically because you still do not have the starting date. When the contract has been signed, since that time you can already start implementation planning. The tender can be prolonged. Tender committee may open may answer you on the first day or on the 10th day. So as soon as the contract is signed, starting with this date, the contractor should provide you with the detailed plan of project implementation. And all the stakeholders should be present and should discuss the proper conditions of cooperation. Who should organize this meeting? Organization of this kick-off meeting is direct duty of the project manager because this project manager is the key responsible person for bringing all the stakeholders together and coordinating the activity of all these
у меня
stakeholders.
по-другому нас по-другому,
I don't know
потому что
what
больше
about the others, but
муниципалитета нет.
with us it won't be in a different way. There should be a representative of municipality who will deal with it. I would like to stress how important it is to fix, to record the stages of construction works. Probably in other countries it is different, but for us, the construction documents are prepared post factum. So the construction works have been performed, and only then you start filling in all the documents or drafting all the documents. So probably this time, project team should initiate the schedule of construction works for you to be able to follow the stages. Can just divide the building into conditional sectors or parts and then follow that each part is performed in due time. Because in case you do not have such a schedule, written schedule, and if the works are prolonged, it will be really difficult for you to prove the case. Any questions? Any comments? There is a question.
Вопрос уточнения.
It is probably a question just to specify. Talking about point number 6,
Правильно ли я поняла, что нужно
have I understood it correctly?
чек-лист,
That definitely there should be contact checklist, schedule of project implementation,
идет как рабочие
and
документы, которые мы
do we
будем
consider it to be
готовы,
our
это будут
working
рабочие
documents
документы для, скажем, еженедельных встреч,
for
отслеживания, планирования,
planning
или
weekly
это
meetings,
прогнозируемые
or
документы? Просто,
these
да.
are documents that we just
Протокол
use?
должен быть по
Probably
результатам
there
любой
should
из
be
этих встреч. И вот
there should be a
по
protocol or
результатам
minutes
любой встречи,
according to
организованной в
the
рамках
results of
проекта.
each
Поэтому
meeting
просто,
organized
это отчет
within the
без
framework of the
вашего
project.
учета. Аудиторы
Because
все
first
равно
of
вас
all,
будут
we are
проверять
talking
ваши
about
timesheets,
reporting, and the
спрашивать, что вы
auditors will
делали,
check your
почему,
timesheets.
потому что вы работаете
They
там
will
условно
just
на 70%,
ask what were you
100%
doing,
занятости. То есть это
because
ваш отчет.
lots of you work with
А
100%
это, в
employment, so
принципе,
it is important for
доказательство того, что
reporting.
вы не просто
And
собрались в время,
also it is
приняли какие-то
important for
решения.
you to fix the record that you have taken some decisions during these meetings. So apart from detailed scheduled, apart from a contact checklist, definitely there should be a minutes of this kick-off meeting. Who was present, what questions were
Чистый
discussed, and
протокол
what
или дополнение,
was the final decision.
календарный план и контактный
So the minutes of the meeting with two documents, the calendar plan, the schedule, and the contact checkpoint.
I would just like to add that, again, from our experience, Maxim has said that the kickoff meeting should be appointed before the signing of the contract or during the signing of the contract when all the stakeholders are there and when the general director, CEOs, and the key stakeholders are present. In spite of the fact that, according to the legislation, the kickoff meeting should be held within 2 weeks after the conclusion of the contract. But actually, the legislation does not regulate this. Just what I like more is the World Bank rules, and we are trying to successfully use them. And that is called the contract negotiation stage. Prior to conclusion of the contract, we organize this meeting, besides the kickoff meeting, as you have called it. And there, at this meeting, we definitely discuss their calendar schedule, and it must be updated within 2 weeks. That is clear, and it's clearly indicated in the contract. But this protocol normally includes all the technical nuances, all the plans and the structure of works, and like coordination between these works, also contact data of contact people. Also, we stipulate the financial side of things and the form of payment, because normally these are the key issues which a lot of offers, as practice shows, do not get acquainted with while preparing tendering documents. So either you have to pay in installments or you pay de facto after the works are performed, and there must be functional guarantee and performance guarantees. There must be some interest paid, which you pay in some period. I mean, not the interest, but the percentage of payment which you make a couple of days or weeks after the end, the completion of works. And there are some nuances connected with taxes. People sometimes include taxes into the cost of works, but according to the EU delegation funding, these taxes should not be included into the cost of works. With us, this is VAT, And I think that in most countries that's the same tax which is included into the cost and shouldn't be. Of course, we do some blackmailing in a way because we discuss it. We have this contract negotiation in the presence of all the stakeholders, and only after this protocol is signed, there takes place the conclusion of the contract. And if something happens and the offerer sees something that he has missed or has not taken into account, he can actually reject. But the risks get smaller. And when these issues arise in the course of implementation of the contract, it will be a very painful experience for all the stakeholders.
Переходим к третьему.
So we're going over to the third
Еженедельный
type, which
Ну, основная цель
well, the key goal of those weekly meetings, I guess, is to
отслеживание
detect
графика
the
выполнения работы.
compliance with the schedule of work performance. And when we have the schedule, then at those weekly meetings, we have to consider whether we are following the schedule or we are ahead the schedule or we are lagging behind. And if lagging behind, then what the reason for that is, what the problem is.
Значит, ну, когда проводить это во время
As
реализации
to when
проекта,
should we have those weekly meetings, so that is during the implementation, and let it be once a week when it is most convenient, be it Monday, be it Friday.
это уже зависит от того,
That already depends on
кто должен присутствовать.
what you
В первую
agree.
очередь,
Who should be present there? Well, first of all, there must be a representative of the customer present there, representative of
технадзора,
site supervision,
само собой подрядчик,
definitely contractor,
управление проектом.
the project management team.
То, что вот Норберт говорил, что
And Norbert has mentioned that, in fact, it's also desirable that at this meeting we also have the representatives of the design organization. Well, you know,
ну да, я тоже не вижу смысла
I
на
don't
каждой
see a
встрече
great point in inviting all the representative of the design company to all those meetings. But if we see that some issues arise related to project documents, or in the course of construction we detect some
например, там неучтенные
defects or some things which were not taken into account by the designer in the project documents, then we definitely invite them.
ну, повестка дня,
Then the agenda,
ход выполнения, во-первых, ход
the
выполнения
course of
работ,
implementation. First of all, what issues arise
реализации проекта.
in the implementation of the project.
Так, ну, результат
And
еженедельный
the
отчет.
results, well, the result is the weekly report.
Единственное, что добавлю,
Well, the only thing I'm going to add here is that site supervision is really present, and design supervision is present, and the designer is present upon request, because there is no need to invite these people on a weekly basis. But if there is a need to discuss some technical details or to make amendments in the design, definitely you cannot do this without the designer.
я бы хотел акцентировать
I would like
внимание,
to
что
draw your attention to the fact that we, as a support team, do stick to the opinion that this is also a direct responsibility of the project manager to organize this sort of meeting. Because, well, there is some legislative area and site supervision should be performed on a daily basis and the contractors should be on site on a daily basis. But this coordination meeting is an absolute must. And it must be project manager who will be responsible for the organization of these meetings on a weekly basis. So it doesn't matter when exactly the meeting is held. But unfortunately, we have had many a case within our first phase projects when you give a call to the project manager and ask what is happening on the site, and he cannot provide you a clear answer whether any work is being done there, how many people are present on the site, and so on and so forth. And we are always trying to show that you, as project managers, majorly work full-time. Therefore, your presence there is a must. And definitely you cannot be well aware of all the technical things, but even your presence there is already a great factor of motivation. and you will see whether 2 or 20 people are working on the site, and that is already important an important fact for which you don't need to be a technical expert. So you should pay regular visits to the site, and you, as project managers, need to organize these weekly meetings on the site. And quite often, you also need to discuss what has been done over the next week, over the previous week. I mean, you compare what was planned and what has been done, and if there are any deviations, you need to study them and discuss why they have happened. Also, quite often, you discuss some technical issues, and that is a possibility for the contractor to get a consultation from the technical experts, from the other stakeholders. That is also that is also a possibility to discuss some financial issues. I mean, whether there are any areas, any debts, any outdated payments, and that is the basis for you to understand how you need to plan your budget further on, what the amount of payment for this month will be, and also there must be a protocol drawn up at the end of this meeting, or you could have a protocol plus a weekly report of the construction company and of the site supervisor. There are options. You can combine these three elements, but it may also be the case that all the three are available as a result of the meetings. Any questions?